Hello. Today we're talking with Rosita Perez, a woman, a mom, a grandmom, a sister, and the founder of Moving Forward for Life, a self-discovery life coach and realtor. Welcome to Next Level Leadership. I'm your host, Dana Weaver. Welcome, Rosita. Thank you.
Hey, Dana. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. I'm just really glad to have you here. I'd love to start out with a conversation about leadership around your leadership journey. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your leadership journey?
So, I was thinking about this last night, and I really had to go back to the drawing board in terms of what is a leader? What does that mean? And it's really the ability to guide and inspire others towards a common goal, right? And then I thought about it even more because when I was a little girl, I always felt like, oh, you can't be a leader unless you're in business or in a company, in a director and above type position. But really, it's not. Like parents can be leaders, spiritual, if you're leading a Bible study, you're a leader, and any position that inspires. And I think that's important to note because I'm sure there are other people like me out there thinking, oh, I'm not a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are in so many different ways. So I wanted to see what you thought about that.
Well, I agree. I agree 100% because it doesn't matter where we are in life or what our job position is. We can be leaders from any level and anything that we do. And it's all about stepping up and stepping out and getting over that quote unquote imposter syndrome that some of us have and just be fully ourselves and help guide people to whatever it is that they need. And I'm just really glad that you said that because you're right. There's tons of people out there that don't believe they're leaders or that they can't be leaders because that only happens in a business. So,
yeah. I mean, it even happens with our own family or all our own friends, right? There's always the one friend who's taking leadership and saying, okay, what time are we going to do it? Who's bringing what? That's a leader.
I love those friends.
Yeah. I'm usually that friend.
As a good. So tell us about your leadership journey. What was the journey you went on to become a leader?
Well, I started out just, doing the regular jobs. And then I was chosen to lead a team to develop a new department within our company. Mm-hmm. And I also was a director of events where that was fun because we went locally as well as within the U.S. And I had to figure out the events, had to have staff when we went out of town. And so that was a lot of fun. Also part of a team of project analysts in the technology world for cell phones.
Oh.
And so we had to get together, work with the engineers, kind of figure out, okay, what are you doing? What time are you going to get, when are you going to get it to us? It was a lot. Then as an entrepreneur, I'm all the C levels, COO, CEO, CFO, and coach and realtor. So that's been my positions, if you will, as a leader in business world. But I'm also a leader in my personal world. I'm a mom, a grandma, like you stated. I'm the leader in our extended family. And I led a women's ministry at a church, and I'm part of the steering committee at my current church.
Wow.
Steering committee for business.
That's fantastic. You're definitely a leader at all levels.
When I was thinking about it last night, Dana was like, I'm not a leader. And then I started listing it down. And I'm like, oh my God. We don't realize, is my point, the gifts that we bring to a team.
That is so true. I'm glad you brought that up too. I really feel like, well, let's just take a pause for all of our audience for a moment. And if you can, write down all of the ways that you are a leader. If we were to interview you right now, what would that look like? And write those down because you may find that you lead in a lot of different ways that you never even considered before.
Yeah. I mean, being like a teen mom, that's a leader. You got to get all the other moms to bring some sort of snack because you don't want to do it all the time.
Yep. That's so true. There's so many ways. Yeah. Through the leadership philosophy of Weaver Solutions and next level leadership, that was easy for me to say. Um, we believe that everyone is unique, every person is unique, and that translates into leadership. And you really can't find two people that show up exactly the same on their leadership journey, as you know. So, what's your philosophy on leadership, or what guides your leadership path?
You know, in my younger days, the ego took over, right? So I led with we got to get it done, task oriented, focused on the project and the end result, which of course, as leaders, this is what we're supposed to do. But I didn't realize that that was not necessarily the way to build a team.
Yeah.
So my philosophy is treat people the way you want to be treated. Because I've been on the other side where I had a team leader or a manager that was like, oh, can't stand him. And you're not as productive. You're not giving your best. So with the mentality of treat people the way you want to be treated, I started to nurture the team and get more personal with them in terms of, hey, so you have a daughter, what's going on? Being like a friend in a sense, still holding that level of leader, but building that synergy so we can move towards the same goal.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad you brought this up. We're definitely on the same wavelength today. One of the guiding principles of Weaver Solutions, my company, is to treat others as they would like to be treated. And unpacking that a little bit and diving deeper into it, sometimes we think, or the golden rule is the way we would like to be treated. And we often do that to others, but it's really the way they want to be treated or they need to be treated. And it was described great by you because you talked about the leader and then you talked about yourself and then you went to the point of how are they doing? What is it that they need? So that was a perfect segue into that.
Yeah. And this quote that I always carry around by President Theodore Roosevelt, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Absolutely. That is so good. That is so good. And that's so perfect for the times right now, because we always feel like in business that we need to know everything. I know I'm one of those people. In my former job, I felt like I needed to know everything. So I would just take in as much information as I could. And I never felt like I knew enough because you can't know everything.
I know. Isn't that funny? The pressure that we put on ourselves to be perfect and to make sure that we're doing everything. It's almost robotic.
Yeah.
Right? And we lose sense of self. So we are not authentically showing up. We're not giving the best that we can give because we don't even know who we are because we're so busy being on the hamster wheel.
Yeah. That's a difficult place to be all the time. What leaders have inspired you over your lifetime?
Wow. John Maxwell.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Yeah. When I went to college, we had the benefit of seeing him in person.
Oh,
and it was a very small group. So I was just in awe how he is such a leader. He's hilarious, and he's led by God. So that blew me away. I thought, oh, okay, so we can be all three, and it's okay. And he was so comfortable in who he is.
Well, why did you think that you couldn't be all three?
Oh, wow. That's a bit of a deep question. Are you wanting me to unpack in front of the
Like,
world?
well, don't share anything that you don't feel comfortable sharing, but um, I think your experience is going to be relevant to a lot of people watching.
Well, first of all, I grew up, I'm from the islands, so there's not a lot of it in the time I grew up. There's not a lot of professional. So I already felt behind the curve. So I felt like I had to wear a certain mask if I was in a meeting with the executive. And I tend to laugh a lot because that's my medicine. And that's frowned upon in a lot of business settings. So it's a lot of toning down. So it's different masks that you have to wear depending on what meeting you're going to.
True. That's very true. Well, thank you for sharing that. I know that that can be difficult. And when we think about the different masks that we wear and how we got those masks to put on, it can be enlightening and it can be difficult and it can be all the things.
Yeah.
How did you begin to emulate maybe John Maxwell and the way he led after you heard him?
Well, I had already had in mind. Let me back up a little bit. I had in mind to go back to college because I wanted my daughter to go to college. So my mindset was, okay, well, I can't ask her if I don't have a degree. So I went back to college, and that's where I met John Maxwell, or went to his event, because that was part of my degree program in organizational leadership. So I was just blown away, like, wow, this is great. I can be who I am, and certain people you can be fully who you are. But you do, as a leader, have to set an example. So there's a pulling back of who you genuinely are, but it's a delicate mix.
Yes, it is a delicate net. So what are some of the leadership challenges that you faced and how did you overcome them?
Okay, so being chose to be a team lead for a new department that we were creating. One of the young ladies was super driven, super catty, and very, very smart. But again, it's all about your approach and how you deal with things. She was super challenged. She would go to my boss and say, well, I don't like the way Rosita is doing this. I think we should do it this way. And I get it. She was trying to make an impression. But at that age, I think I was maybe 30, mid-30s. And I just didn't have the skill set to deal with it. So I fell back into how I process things.
Yeah.
And so that was a challenge. I didn't know how to deal with her. And most people, like myself, just don't deal. They just kind of ignore and just try to do the best.
Yeah. So how did you rise out of that? What did you learn from that? And what did you do differently in your next leadership challenge?
I think I did try to pull her aside and talk with her and see what was going on. How could we, work through this together? And then I talked to the boss. And that kind of settled it down a little bit. And then she eventually got moved to another position.
And then after that, were you able to step up and lead the way that you were hoping to?
Oh, I was still stepping up.
Well, yes, I didn't mean to infer that you weren't stepping up, but just sometimes when there's a difficult person within the team and then they're removed, some people feel a little bit more empowered to.
It was definitely more of a synergy because certain people that end up in your team they rub everybody the wrong way.
Yeah. So if there's a leader out there listening right now and saying, oh my gosh, yes, I'm having the same problem. And I know there are because I just talked to someone yesterday that had a very similar problem. What advice would you give them?
I would say get to know that person. Maybe go out to lunch, connect with them on a personal level, see what's important to them, and see what suggestions that they have about building the department.
That's good. Very good.
Yeah, because a lot of people need buy-in, right? Sometimes, well, all the time we come to work with our own baggage.
Yeah.
We have a fear of rejection. We feel invisible. And we don't have a voice. And if we have a voice, we're insecure about saying whatever we want to say because we think it's going to sound dumb.
Yeah.
So I believe that if you talk to your team members and just get, what suggestions do you have? And have it genuine, not robotic, not fake, but just, so what do you think we could do to make this department better? And I think that will break down some walls because when people have buy-in, they feel part of the team. They feel like their gifts can contribute to the end goal.
Yes. Thank you very much for that. That's really good. I think we've kind of heard it a little bit in this interview, but I also know this of you as a friend and a colleague right now. And that is your faith is really integrated into your leadership. And so my question is, how is integrating your faith with your personal growth journey empowered you to break free from self-doubt and a life of fearless?
Oh, wow. I had those same fear of rejection, no voice, all those things. I didn't know how to articulate what I wanted, what my needs were, or how I could, what my skill set was. I just was not aware of me. And so integrating my faith meant that I had to give it all to God. And I would say, okay, show me, because I have no idea. Help me to overcome this fear of rejection, this unworthiness, because I know you made me fearfully and wonderfully. And I know that I'm a masterpiece, and you have given me gifts and talents that only I have and a purpose for me. So, at first I didn't feel it. It didn't sink in. But now I feel like I stand in that.
Oh,
and that has made all the difference. That's my Godfidence that we were talking about.
I love that word. So those of you that are listening, we were praying at one point together, and she said Godfidence, and I had never heard that before. And I just love that because he does put confidence into us, and it really is from him. Most of our confidence is from him. And I just love that. And I love how you infuse it into your leadership journey and what you do for your clients. It's an integral part of all of our lives. Even if we maybe not believe in God, or we believe in something else, or, we put things out to the universe, there's a higher power that's guiding us and giving us the confidence that we need. So I really like that you stand firm in your faith, and thank you, Alyssa, about
it was a journey. And just so you know, Godfidence is not mine. I heard it in a sermon or something. I don't want to take credit, whoever made it.
Well, it keeps giving forth, because I've used it a number of times, and I think you have too.
Yes.
So those of you out there, stand in your Godfidence. Definitely stand in your Godfidence. So when you look at other leaders, because we're surrounded with a lot of leaders right now in the program that we're going through, and you look around at those who are influential and influence others, what are some of the skills and traits that you believe are essential for effective leadership?
Listening.
Mic drop. Tell us more about that.
Well, again, when I was younger and the got to get it done, and not paying attention to the team, you got to listen, having those one-on-ones with them, and not one-on-ones to check the box off, one-on-ones to see, get their ideas. Let them be a part of the team.
So what if a new leader is listening, Rosita, and hears you and believes that, yes, I need to help them be part of the team, but I don't really know how that looks in practice?
Well, if you can't go out to lunch with them, then just, take them into your office for like 5 or 10 minutes. Just say, hey, I just want to check in with you and see how you're doing. That carries so much weight because, again, when people know that we care, then they tend to get more invested and they feel like they're part of the team as a person, not as a skill set.
Yes, that's so important. So important. I say that a lot. People are people and they are important. And for all of us to bring forth our best, no matter what we do, we need to feel that we're important and we need to be acknowledged like we're individuals and not part of the big group or be a number. Nobody likes to be a number.
No, and here's the thing, when you're just a number and you have high turnover, that costs the company a lot of money because you got to train somebody all over again. You got to have, a certain amount of time for them to get up to speed. That takes time and takes off the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. And who has time for all that?
Who has time for that time?
Yeah. Who has time for all that? So what we've been talking about a little bit is communication, the communication 101. I just don't think communication is taught enough in college. Well, even all the way the K through 12. We just don't have enough education around communication. And if we're around people who don't communicate well or they've never been able to communicate well, it's a perpetual cycle that seems to keep going forward. And I'm just curious, have you ever taken part in a communication training yourself?
Yes, communication, conflict resolution. I come from a huge I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I interrupted you. Then go ahead and finish. Sorry.
I come from a huge family, so conflict resolution is essential. And being I'm the youngest girl, so I didn't have a voice. There were 10 other people before me that had voices and were my bosses. So I just realized this the other day where I didn't have a voice as a little girl, and now I am the voice for the family. Like if somebody gets heartbreak or they need advice on something or they need some sort of middle person to kind of resolve the situation, they come to me. So now I have a voice.
How's that feel?
Oh my gosh, it feels amazing. Excuse me, not just to have a voice, but to have a voice where I can integrate faith, where I can say, hey, well, can we pray about this? Like when I go show houses as a realtor and they are of faith, and they really love the house. There's so much pressure to find the right house. And so I take them back to the house and okay, let's just pray. If it's what God wants you to have, it'll happen. If not, then there's something better coming that fits your needs even more. It takes so much pressure off of the buyers because they know, okay, it's in the higher power's hands. And if we get it, perfect. If not, there's some peace that there is a perfect place for them.
Absolutely. And you've probably seen that happen a lot of times over your career.
Yeah.
And see, you're leading from the realtor place, from the perspective of being a realtor, leading them into their next home.
Yes. And it's marketplace ministry. And you got to, you know, we use our gifts. Once we find out what our gifts are, then it's like our mind opens and we start to understand a lot more and stand in those gifts.
Can you give me some ideas and ways that you help leaders get unstuck and transform and find their fearlessness so that they can feel fulfilled?
So, excuse me. So I sit down with them and we just kind of, you know, women, we have to process as we talk, right? So I just listen. That's one of I think it's the biggest quality we can have as leaders. Just listen and then kind of watch what is super important to them, because you could tell by the body language what's really bothering them, what is distressing, you know, bringing them to a point where they are just tired and ready to give up. And then we talk, and then I unpack it. So what does that mean to you? What would it look like if you could have the situation the way you want it to have? Okay, so it looks like X. Okay, so how can we get there? And then that's it.
That's how you get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they have to implement the plan. We talk about creating a mini plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they implement it, then they go, okay, so this worked and that didn't work. Okay, so let's reframe that or repackage it. And so it's just worked like that.
That's fantastic. How many times do we have somebody that can help guide us down that path and give us the opportunity to reframe things? That is gold right there.
Oh, it's essential to have a coach, a mentor. I don't know if a therapist can do that for you, but I know for sure, because a coach is like your dedicated partner. They are there to uplift you, be your biggest cheerleader, and to keep you accountable.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Without judgment.
Yes. Yes. The judgment piece is so important. So important. And this is one of the reasons that I wanted to bring you on and be a guest on our show, because this whole idea of coaching is it's getting to be better known and people are using them more and more, but it's not super common in the workplace. And I don't think that enough of us understand what coaches do, especially life coaches. So I was hoping you'd tell us a little bit about that, and then why our audience would want to hire a life.
Oh my gosh. So again, a coach is a dedicated partner to you. I mean, we can talk to our spouses, our friends, but they're not aware of what's going on. They don't understand maybe what's going on. So a dedicated partner, again, who is going to uplift you, encourage you, keep you on track with the goals that you guys set together, and provide a support system so that you can unpack your gifts as you're learning and learn to be unstoppable. That's the whole point, right? When we're unstoppable, we connect with who we are. We're authentic. What is it? The sky is our oyster. Is that?
World is our oyster.
The world.
Yeah.
There we go. You know.
We all want that, but not everybody believes that they can have it. And so Rosita is one of the pathways to getting that. And so glad that you provide that service to people, and glad that we're exposing people who don't know about it to it today. And those of you that have actually used a coach in the past know the power of a coach. So love for you to put some love down in the comments about how important coaching is. That would be fantastic.
If I could just say one thing about a lot of times therapists and coaches get kind of intertwined and mixed up, right? So therapists really handle your past pain, your trauma, your childhood stuff. And coaches, we say, okay, you ready? Let's move forward.
Yes, that's such a great distinction.
Yeah.
Take you
Big
where you
difference.
are and move you forward. Uh-huh. Did you have a coach?
God was my coach.
You can't ask for a better coach, right?
And honestly, I just didn't know what I didn't know in my 30s and 40s. I just didn't know. And I had such a level of pride. Like, I don't want people to know that I need help or I need a coach. So that I think that having a coach in the business world is essential. And I know that's going to be an added line on the budget, right?
Yeah.
It might take away from the bottom line initially. But I believe that if a company provides coaching for their employees, I think there'll be a whole different mindset of people and a whole different level of commitment.
Absolutely. Such a great point. And I'd like to just follow it up a little bit. A lot of my audience initially is going to be people who work in aging services. And we didn't just, but the pandemic really took this field, our field, in a whole different direction and was not very enlightening for us. I'll just say that. And something that I saw a couple of communities do, these would be retirement communities. One of them hired a therapist and had a therapist on call to help them deal with the trauma. And another one hired a therapist and a coach. And it was really clear that the therapist was helping them through the trauma because there was tons of trauma for everyone in the pandemic. But if you don't know much about aging services, everything was just closed down. And those poor caregivers were everything to those residents because of the laws that came out. And it was the expectation because of the laws, not because the nursing homes decided that you couldn't come in. And so they became everything. And I think that those organizations that could afford to and had the foresight to bring in people to help with the trauma, but also then help them move forward, are doing so much better right now than they would have at the time. So that was a great distinction. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I've asked you a ton of questions, Rosita. Do you have any questions for me?
I'd like to know about the services you provide to the aging community.
Well, thank you. So I provide executive coaching, like we talked a little bit about. I also do training and I do keynote speaking, all around the ideas of leadership. Leadership is my passion, which is why I have this YouTube channel. And I have had the privilege of teaching hundreds of people in the aging services space in their leadership. And they're all levels. And again, back to the first part of our conversation, they were not really in the mindset that they were leaders. We had someone who was a CNA. We had someone who ran a low-income housing or HUD housing for older people. They just didn't feel like they were leaders, but they were. And oh my gosh, they may have been more profound leaders in those groups than any of the people who already sat in the CEO seat. So it just gave me a passion for leadership and helping to infuse it in others. And where we align, Rosita, that I think is so important is I think having our faith be part of our leadership journey is really important, and figuring out how we want to use that in our leadership journey. And also talk a little bit about the safety of that, to be honest with you, because in some corporations and some companies, they don't let you talk about your faith. And so, again, I feel like everybody's an individual. And if you have a deep faith, you should be able to bring that forward, as long as you're not cutting out whole groups of people just because, you feel like it. We all have to work together. We're all on the same team, and we're all rowing in the same direction, or we should be. And when we don't have someone rowing in the same direction, it's just all over the place. You really aren't able to accomplish what it is that your organization or your team needs to accomplish. So we talk a lot about that, and it doesn't matter what your faith is or what you believe. We hold that up as well. And we talk a ton about communication. And I think one of the most important things that we talk about, and you brought it up, and I said mic drop moment, was the listening, because not enough of us listen, or we're listening just enough so that we can say the next word. We're waiting to say the next thing. We're not truly hearing what that person in front of us is saying. And that is something that you brought up over and over. And it just fits perfectly with my philosophy on leadership and a lot of people's philosophy on leadership.
I think it's a core value that we have to have in all our ship, right?
Yes.
Relationships, situationships, friendships, it has to be there if you want to authentically show up and be reciprocal, right, in your conversations. It can't be all one person talking all the time. I could replace myself with a wall if that's the case. I don't need to be there if you're just going to do the talking. It needs to be a reciprocal
communication. Yes. I don't get that reciprocal, easy for me to say, reciprocal communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. So through this interview, we're kind of getting ready to come to a close. What is something that you wish I would have asked you in this conversation that you want our viewers to know that I didn't?
Well, you did have one of the questions where, what would I say to a new leader?
Yes.
Coming into the workplace. And what I would say is, do your work to find out who you are. What are your core values? What are your gifts? Like, we all have things that we are naturally good at, right? And when we're not aware of that, we just kind of fumble around. But so, number one, find out who you are. Do your healing. Number two, take the various tests. I can email that to you. There's 5 top tests that you can take, and helps you uncover who you are and some of the values. I think there's a values section. Yeah. Once you find that out, definitely get a higher power and or a coach, both preferably.
And if you need to, a therapist.
And if you need to, a therapist. That's part of the do your work.
Yeah.
Do your healing work. Because we all have stuff from our childhood. I don't know any one person that I've ever talked to that didn't have something to say about how they grew up, negative and positive. So we all have it. It's nothing to be ashamed of. So let's get it out of our wheelhouse so that we can have more real estate to be who we were called to be.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. I want to know, so we've been talking a lot about coach. Tell us more about your business and how people can get a hold of you if they're interested in hiring a coach.
Great. Yeah. So my self-discovery business, well, let me back up. I'm a realtor and a self-discovery coach. So I help people find their way home, whether that's a physical place or the core of who they are. And a lot of times we don't know who we are. So my coaching business was birthed out of me going through a long-term separation and divorce from a 20-year marriage. And then getting out of that, I was determined to learn how to get connected with the core of who I am. Because I realized I didn't love myself. I didn't value myself enough to know the red flag in any situation. And so I took the time to do that. I leaned on God so much, and He has given me such peace and a joy that nobody can take away. And I mean, they're still going to poke at me. Life is still going to happen. But now I have a solid foundation where I can say, oh, okay, Lord, you see this too, right? So I'm not going to, vengeance is yours. I'm just going to sit back. I don't have to worry about that. So a lot of stress It's like having the coat of heaviness on, worry, concern. What am I going to do? How am I going to do that? Now I can just take that off and put on what's called a garment of praise and just move forward in be who God called me to be. So that's how come my self-discovery business was birthed. And I help other women who are unaware of their value, who have been putting themselves on the bargain rack instead of behind the glass where all the expensive stuff is. It's time to get behind the glass, ladies. So that's what I do. I help women find their core values, connect with the core of who they are, find out that they are worthy, and that they can be unstoppable once they connect to the authenticity of who they are.
That's beautiful.
I'm so excited about it because I wish I had somebody come alongside of me. I was fortunate to have a real strong community of Christian women and some really good core friends that help, and of course God helped me along the way. So it makes me more sensitive to women who have to do this all alone. So we do visualizations, we do worksheets, we do our coaching sessions to unpack who you are so we can get to that core.
That's exciting. Sign me up. Sign me up. We need this. Yes. So thank you for filling that space and helping women, because there's a lot of people out there helping women, but your unique focus it's just right on from my perspective. And I appreciate all that you do and know that you allow people to be themselves and just find their best self. And who doesn't want that, right?
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, I'm just taking some major things from this conversation. And one of them is the listening. I think that's really important for us to remember and for us to re-highlight in the conversation. That listening is powerful. And that listening, if you get listening down, you're going to be a good leader. There's a lot of things that you can do to be a good leader, but listening is that ground floor, and connecting with your higher power is very important as well. I'm glad that we were able to bring that out in this conversation and just glorify the Lord as we do. The other thing that I'm really taking from the conversation is this idea that we shouldn't be ashamed of having a coach to take us forward, and that it is becoming more and more popular. And so I really appreciate you bringing that out as well. What are some of your takeaways?
My takeaways is that I am more understanding of what you do and the importance of it and how you light up when you talk about it.
Thank you.
So that's when to me, that's when you know that you're talking to a good coach. I mean, one that has a passion about it, one who's really like invested in making sure that people get to the next level. That's what I see in you.
Well, thank you. And I see in you just such a great light. I mean, you spread beauty and kindness, and you have this aura that's it attracts people to you. So, and that is so important. And I understand a lot more about what you do now too. And that really helps me and know that maybe I just need to get out there and look for a coach or hire Rosita. We're going to put her information in the below this, in the information below. I always say the comments, but you guys are the ones that put information in the comment. So we'll put it in the notes below. And feel free to reach out to Rosita if you are looking for a life coach. I think that you would hit the jackpot if you worked with Rosita. And I just really want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to us today. And I know that you've gained additional takeaways that we've taken from this. And I hope that at all levels, you've learned something from it. And I really want to thank you, Rosita, for joining us and giving. I asked some deep questions, or some questions that maybe you hadn't thought of before. And so I really thank you for being vulnerable and having the courage to talk about them as well.
Thank you. I appreciate, Dana, that you are doing this work. So important to get it into the business world. And I'm sure that you will not just open the door, but bust it open and make a change. Make a change.
That would be fantastic. My thing right now is I'm looking for the interrupters in our space. Because we don't really have any right now. So I'm looking for somebody that can bust the door open, and I'll bust it open with you. So thank you so much. If you have questions for Rosita or anything like that, again, put them in the comments and I'll respond to them. And I bet Rosita would too. So again, thank you so much for coming, for being part of Next Level Leadership. And we will see you next time.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you again.